Here are some crazy things happening in the world right now. A court in India ruled that movie theater chains must compensate customers for mental agony caused by too many advertisements. A couple casually bragged about illegal hunting mid-flight while wildlife officers were sitting right behind them. A Chinese company told employees to get married or get fired, then backtracked after backlash. There is now a trend in India where call center agents are having their accents digitally altered using AI. A truck driver was stopped for a random inspection and found with $1.1 million in cash and 183 pounds of weed. A woman is divorcing her husband because he booed Taylor Swift during the Super Bowl. A Georgia woman gave birth to the wrong baby after a fertility clinic implanted another couple's embryo. A Diddy-themed parade float appeared at Mardi Gras and no one knows who made it. A woman who was missing for 3 years was found inside of a fertilizer tank. The world's tallest and fastest roller coaster that was in New Jersey has been dismantled after 20 years. A woman locked her boyfriend in a storage unit for 4 days with no food or water until he found his phone. A teenager injected butterfly remains and died from suspected toxins. 4 sober drivers were arrested for DUI by ex-police in Tennessee. A new study shows that Labradors and humans share the same genetic drive to overeat. The Molly Malone statue in Ireland is going to be raised higher in order to stop the constant groping. Serial killer Hannibal the Cannibal, what a name, is on a hunger strike after his PlayStation was banned in prison.
Here's some of the greatest conspiracy theories of all time. Part 5. Many families have come to know and love the movie WALL-E, the adorable robot that goes on an adventure through space. Many times throughout the film, it is made clear that WALL-E stores spare parts to fix himself. It's assumed that he takes them from the deactivated WALL-Es since they no longer need them. But how exactly did they deactivate if they are made to roam the planet forever? This theory states that the other robots kept stealing WALL-E's collection of items because they were still in their default programming. Much like when WALL-E was reset and did the same. WALL-E eventually got sick of it and broke all of the other robots in various ways, such as crushing them with trash cubes and taking their parts for salvage.
Facts that I wish I didn't know. When you die, the last thing to go is your hearing. So as all your other mortal sensations are leaving this world, the last thing you're ever going to experience are the sounds going on around you, which very well could be like your family members crying or cheering. By the year 2050, there's going to be more plastic in the ocean than fish. When pigs get a cold, like a cough, very often they will shoot their intestines out of their anus, and farmers have to, stuff it back in.
How rare is your body? First, only 11% of people have naturally curly hair. So if you fall into any of these groups, consider yourself rare. Now, comment on which ones you have. Second, less than 3% of people have an X on their palms, which is considered a sign of strong character. Third, only about 33% of people can actually whistle, and unfortunately, I'm not one of them. Fourth, 14% of people don't have a palmaris longus muscle. This is the muscle that stands out when you flex your hand like this. Fifth, only 16% of people can produce a high-pitched noise with their jaw. They can control a muscle that most people can't, and it creates a loud sound. Sixth, 33% of people have astigmatism. This makes lights appear blurry and distorted, like in this photo. Seventh, less than 6% of people can vibrate their eyes and shake them rapidly back and forth. And do you have any of these characteristics? Or do you know someone who has any? And which of these characteristics do you think is the rarest?
Disturbing brain facts you didn't know about. The brain will protect itself even if it means misery to you or death. Inhaling smoke in the middle of a burning house. Brain will make you stop breathing and pass out. Stuck in the middle of a cold place. You will fall asleep to conserve energy and never wake up again. Had your leg torn off by a bear. Here's adrenaline. So you can save your brain even if there's a huge risk of infection or further injury. You and your brain work together most of the time, but when push comes to shove, you are sacrificed.
This man followed a teen and her grandmother who were on a trail, and then he took their lives. In 2021, 17-year-old Hera and her grandmother, 78-year-old Zanetta, were found deceased in their home in Largo, Florida. Earlier that day, Hera and her grandmother went on a walk on the Pinellas Trail not too far from their house. On their way home, 19-year-old Sage Curry followed them to their house. He waited for the sun to go down before entering their home through the bedroom window. Sage then went into the kitchen and looked for the sharpest knife he could find and used that to attack the grandmother as she slept. Hera ran into the room after hearing her grandmother scream, and she was also stabbed to death. What's insane is that there was no relationship between the victims and Sage. He literally did this for absolutely no reason. His family said that his mental health declined after his 18th birthday and he became delusional, so much that he couldn't tell fiction from reality and believed that TV shows he watched were real. While he sat in jail, he got this moon tattooed on his forehead, which referenced a TV show character who had DID. Sage also got one of the victims' names tattooed on his ankle. In court, he really tried to use the insanity defense, but that was rejected. Sage was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Now this is crazy. In the Philippines today, they have just raised the minimum age of sexual consent from 12 years old to 16 to protect children against abuse and exploitation. Now I had no idea that the age of consent even went that low, so I googled which countries have the highest and lowest age of consent around the world. Now the highest age of consent in the world is 21 in Bahrain, which if you didn't know is a Middle Eastern country next to Qatar. The second highest age of consent is 20 years old in South Korea, while the majority of other countries seem to have an age of consent between 16 and 18. Now the youngest age of consent is 11 years old in Nigeria. The second lowest age of consent is 12 in Angola, obviously previously the Philippines, and then 13 years old in Burkina Faso, Comoros, Niger, and Japan.
Baby elephants have an awkward phase where they don't really know what to do with their trunk or what it's for. So if you see a baby elephant swinging around like this, it's because it's not used to its trunk and it feels awkward. It takes years for them to figure out all the things they can do with their trunk, but until then they helicopter their trunks around as they try to get used to their own body. Also, baby elephants will suck on their trunks almost the exact same way human babies suck their thumbs, because it reminds them of their mother and it provides them comfort when they're stressed. Because elephants are so smart and live for so long, they have one of the highest learning curves of any animal. Which means just like humans, baby elephants are helpless and rely on their mothers for basically everything. And they'll follow her around everywhere. Because of this, elephants spend more time with their mothers than basically any other non-human animal. And even though they can take care of themselves at the age of 5, some of these kids will stick around the mother for up to 16 years. Most baby elephants are naturally afraid of water and will go out of their way to avoid it. They only learn how to swim if the mother encourages it, and for the baby, the love for its mother outweighs its fear of water, which makes it get in. But once the baby elephant goes swimming once, he's pretty much hooked for the rest of his life.
Let's see if you have nyctophobia. There's 5 levels in this phobia test, going from easiest to most difficult. So if you're too scared to make it all the way to the end, then you probably have nyctophobia. Let's begin. How would walking into this dark room make you feel? What about going downstairs in the middle of the night and seeing this? Now for level 3, imagine looking through a door and seeing this staring back at you. Then imagine waking up in the middle of the night, looking outside your window and seeing this. We're getting to level 5, the most scary level. I'll also be showing you a video, so get ready. Let me know if you made it all the way to level 5, and which phobia I should do a test for next. Follow for more.
Do you know the story behind your zodiac sign? Here's one of the weirdest zodiac sign stories out there. This is the origin story of Capricorn. The story begins when Mother Earth had some serious beef with the gods, enough that she sent a fire-breathing monster named Typhon to fight them. And this is where the forest god Pan comes in. He had legs and horns of a goat. He told Zeus and the other gods to disguise themselves as animals in order to avoid Typhon. And while the other gods were disguised, Typhon approached Pan and was about to attack. So Pan panicked and jumped into the river Nile. Because of this, the lower half of his body, which was underwater, transformed into a fish, while the upper half stayed a goat. So that's why we have this sea goat creature to represent Capricorn, but that's not all. Zeus ended up battling Typhon and had the muscles in his hands pulled out. Pan healed him, which allowed Zeus to defeat Typhon in the end. Because of this, Zeus immortalized the image of Pan in the sky as the constellation of Capricorn. But which zodiac sign should I talk about next? Follow to see the rest of the series.
Here's what humans will be like in 1,000 years. In the future, nanobots or tiny robots will be subtly integrated into our bodies, enhancing our own abilities. We will no longer be limited by the bodies we're born in and will truly become a mixture of biology and machine on the inside. With the increase in globalization, the 7,000 languages spoken around the world today will probably dip to below 100. Artificial selection may occur where humans will be able to modify their baby's genes before birth to eliminate any diseases they may carry. As well as moving out into space, we may also be able to conquer death by scanning our brains into computers. Now comment what superpower you would want.
May have upset the bush bear community, so here's 10 positive facts about koalas. They're one of the best mothers in Australia because they'll carry their little Joey around everywhere for up to a year. And unlike kangaroos and quokkas, mother koalas don't abandon their baby to escape predators, instead they fight to the death to protect their Joey. Also, they're not baby-faced pushovers, they're vicious marsupials that can and will defend themselves. Some criminals broke into a zoo to steal and sell a koala for drug money and left with a crocodile because the only thing they took from the koala was a beating. Got checked so bad that they decided taking a whole crocodile would be easier. They have some of the strongest plot armor on the planet because even after everything I said about them, they're somehow not in danger, even after the fires. This plush droid just sits around doing the bare minimum while we have to work and pay taxes, so who's really the dumb one here? The name koala means no water because they get most of their moisture from the leaves they eat. They hardly ever have to drink. The antibiotic doxycycline allegedly has a 97% cure rate with koalas with chlamydia, meaning they might just make a comeback. Some koalas jump from tree to tree, and younger ones will practice their jumps between small forks and trees to build their confidence. They instinctively hug trees and people to stay cool, and I'll take back everything I ever said if I can be a koala's air conditioner.
Wholesome facts that'll make your day slightly better. Part 2. If you've already made it to the airport without dying, you shouldn't be nervous about flying because you've already made it through the deadliest part of plane travel. Whenever you pet an animal, it actually lowers your cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. Side note, this may not work on electric eels, porcupines, or anything that could decimate you in 2 seconds. Because guinea pigs get lonely, it's actually illegal in Switzerland to own just one. You have to get at least 2 if you want to have any at all. Sometimes tarantulas will keep tiny frogs as pets. The frogs will eat small insects that would typically eat the tarantula eggs, and in exchange, the frog gets a pretty damn good bodyguard. Capybara Land is a place in Japan where you can quite literally hang out with capybaras and see them chilling in hot springs. If 99% of the world's population finds you unattractive, that would mean that 78 million people still find you attractive.
Gruesome facts you didn't know, part 178. After being removed from the body, a normal heart can continue to beat for around 60 seconds. A heart removed from a heavy cocaine user can continue to pulsate for up to 25 minutes. Once clinical symptoms appear, rabies is 100% fatal. Haj Mohammed Mesfui was a Moroccan serial killer who murdered at least 36 women. Due to the heinous nature of his crimes, he was sentenced to immurement, sealed in an enclosed space until death.
So more and more sightings of the Smiling Man have been reported recently. For those who don't know, the Smiling Man is a very tall, odd-looking man who wears this creepy grin and is often caught trying to steal children, as was the case with a young girl named Linda. Years ago, Linda lived in West Virginia, and one night she awoke to strange sounds in her bedroom. She rolled over to go back to sleep, but what she saw in her hallway was a tall, dark, shadowy figure. Linda closed her eyes in fear, and when she reopened them, he was standing right above her. She screamed and he disappeared, but recently there's been more reports of sightings. Legend has it, if you close your eyes at night and think the words "Smiling Man, Smiling Man, Smiling Man" over and over again, he'll appear. Would you try?
This is why you should never mess with your coach. Because when the students at this academy challenged their coach claiming they could beat her in a backstroke swimming competition, she didn't just accept it, but gave them a full 5-second head start. Even though the students were already halfway across the pool, the coach finally jumped in and proved why she's the coach. You can clearly see from her smooth backstroke that she's not even giving it her 100%, but still outpacing them one by one with ease. She definitely deserves a like.
Yolanda Saldivar was denied parole, and I can't even begin to tell you how happy that makes me. It's been 30 years since this monster was convicted for Selena Quintanilla's murder. For those who may not know, Selena Quintanilla was an icon. She was beautiful, talented, and she was murdered at the age of 23 by Yolanda Saldivar. This tragedy happened in 1995. I was born in 96, so it's pretty crazy how almost 30 years has gone by and no one has forgotten. I don't think people will ever forget what Yolanda did. Even though she was denied parole this year, she's still eligible for parole in 2030, so let's hope that we have the same outcome. March 31st marks 30 years since Selena's death, and she would actually be 53 years old right now. And I know that if she was still here, she would be killing it.
This dog watching a horror movie trailer is the best thing you'll see all day.
I was serious of visions when I was younger. But after each one ended, the same thought would be stuck in my head.
She was cooked by her crush and was served with potatoes. This is the disturbing story of a beautiful young Russian girl by the name Katrina. She was into poem writing and heavy metal, but sadly in one of these concerts, she met someone that would change her life. She met a 19-year-old man by the name of Maxim in one of these heavy metal concerts. She ended up liking him so much she started developing a crush. Her mother, on the other hand, got suspicious weird vibes from this person and didn't want her daughter to be near him. But of course, she brushed it off and she continued to talk to this person. One day she lied to her mother and said that she was gonna go stay over at a friend's house to study for a project. Her mother was hesitant, however she insisted and she was able to go. She ended up lying to her mother to go to Maxim's apartment and meet up with other friends. These three individuals referred to her as fresh meat. When she arrived there, they drowned her and started eating her. One of the roommates claimed to have heard noise, but didn't think much of it. When she came back from work the next day, her roommates served her some potatoes with beef. Of course, she didn't think anything suspicious because what, they're her roommates. Little did she know that the meat, wasn't really animal meat. The meat belonged to Katrina, who they've had chopped, dismembered, and eaten. They cooked her with onions and spices in the oven. When they were interrogated, they said they ate her because they were drunk and hungry. The people in the courtroom were horrified and disgusted by the crime scene photos. They were charged for the murder of Katrina. What do we think about this disturbing case? This woman called her boyfriend the wrong name during intimacy and he turned her insides out. In 2015, Fidel Lopez and Maria were, doing what they do, when all of a sudden Maria screamed her ex-husband's name twice during a very intimate moment. Fidel then stuck his hand somewhere and pulled whatever he could out of there. He did some horrible things to her with a hot iron, and with his bare hands he reached into her and pulled everything he could. Keep in mind, the poor woman was alive, so she was feeling everything and experiencing everything. The details about this case are super disturbing, I can't even say them. The neighbors were the ones that called 911 because they heard horrific screams. When police got there, the glass was broken, there was a bunch of bottles on the floor, and she was laying there. They said that she was unrecognizable. There was holes in the wall and the glass door was shattered. Fidel tried to get out of the situation by saying that both of them were drunk and supposedly he went to the bathroom to vomit, and when he came back she had trouble breathing. Now, there's different articles that say that the neighbors called and then that he called. Whatever the case may be, this is super disturbing and she was alive during all of this, so just imagine how she was feeling. Fidel was sentenced to life in prison with no parole.
This is crazy things happening in the world right now. In a groundbreaking ruling, the Supreme Court has officially classified all birds as government employees. Scientists just confirmed that clouds are actually floating lakes, but the government refuses to acknowledge them as national parks. The Sun filed for retirement last month, but after intense negotiations, executive astronomers locked in a blockbuster 5 billion-year contract extension, including no trade clauses and and guaranteed daily appearances. Oceanographers recently discovered that whales don't actually sing, they're just complaining about how cold the ocean is. New data suggests that oceans are getting saltier because they're growing increasingly bitter about human pollution. It was just discovered that Mars has been ignoring Earth's messages for years now and is waiting for us to take the hint. A new union has formed representing self-checkout machines, and they are now fighting for paid breaks. Neuroscientists confirmed that the human brain refuses to delete useless information, which is why people remember a jingle from 2005, but not where they put their keys. After decades of observation, researchers have now confirmed that dolphins are conducting deep-sea research but refuse to share their findings with humans. Scientists have finally found the speed limit of the universe, but the number was so embarrassing that they refused to publish it. A shocking new study reveals that Mount Everest is actively trying to grow taller after learning it's not the biggest mountain in the solar system. The Eiffel Tower recently submitted an official request for a second identical tower because it's tired of carrying all of Paris's tourism on its back. Scientists are frustrated after a newly discovered element immediately disappeared the moment they tried to name it. In a bold new move, time zones are being replaced with vibe-based scheduling so people can just work when they feel like it.
He adopted a baby girl just to eventually take her life. Matthew Scully Hicks and his partner Craig had a healthy, loving relationship, and soon after they got married, they decided they were ready to start a family. They worked with the courts to become approved as adopters, and they were just ready to open their hearts and homes to a new baby. This is when 10-month-old Elsie was placed into their care. About a month and a half into their care, problems started to arise. Matthew had took Elsie to her primary care doctor because of a leg injury that happened while Matthew was taking care of her. Matthew told the doctor 4 days prior that Elsie was pushing a baby walker when she leaned back, twisted her legs when she fell backwards. Her injury was consistent with the fall, so no concerns were raised. However, as the months passed, Elsie would continue to have more injuries with new stories for every one of them. Social workers continued to check in on the family, and even though Elsie was having these injuries, it seemed like she was being well cared for. On May 25th of 2016, around 6 p.m., Matthew was changing Elsie's diaper. He then put her into a onesie and laid her back on the floor while he went to the other room to throw away the diaper. Matthew stated that Elsie was happy and calm, but once he went back to the room where she was unresponsive. She was laying on her back on the floor with her eyes open, staring blankly. She was not breathing, and she was still. When first responders arrived to the scene, they took her to the hospital, and unfortunately, they took her off life support and she passed away. At this point, Elsie's family had no idea what had happened or what caused her to decline so rapidly. Doctors had found extensive bleeding between the layers of her brain and her skull. She also suffered damage to her retina and optic nerve and also had small fractures on her ribs. The medical examiner determined that this injury was consistent with a shaking type of injury. It seemed like someone had picked up Elsie very forcefully, which caused her ribs to fracture. It seemed like she was shaken repeatedly and her head was hit against a hard surface. Matthew's husband Craig was taken in for questioning, and he told them that he was working full-time and he would be away from the home for 2 to 3 days, and at that time Matthew was the one taking care of her. He told them that on that day Matthew had called him hysterically crying, told him what had just happened, and he felt like there was no reason to question Matthew about it. He said that Matthew was a very caring and loving person and he would never raise his voice and just didn't seem like the aggressive type. Police ended up speaking to Matthew and Craig's neighbors, and they did state that when one of them would go to work, the other one would stay home with Elsie, and that oftentimes they would hear Matthew yelling at baby Elsie, telling her to shut up, and he would slam the doors, and they would hear plates crashing, and he just seemed very aggressive. As part of the investigation, officers looked through Matthew's phone and they saw a text message to a friend that he told them that he was going through hell with Elsie and that meal times were the worst. She was always crying for like 10 minutes straight. There was also another text message, and this was to Craig, and Matthew told Craig that Elsie was Satan in baby form. Almost a year and a half later, after Elsie's death, Matthew had stood trial for her murder. This entire time, Matthew had denied hurting Elsie, and he claimed that it was just an accident. Eventually, Matthew was found guilty, and he was given a life sentence with the possibility of being released after 18 years. During the trial, Matthew was pretty much emotionless and showed no remorse. The only time that he broke down was when he was given his conviction.